Our first segment comes from a member who sent me an email, but a little background first. A couple of months ago, I was visited by two people. We could call them A and B, but Susie and Elaine sounds more musical. We were having dinner together and we began to talk about music. Elaine had an interest in music. So she participated in the conversation more actively with Donna and me than Susie did. I was having a great time with the conversation, enjoying not just the subject, but the presence, the feel of everybody who was there. But I did not notice, possibly because I was having a good time and just distracted, that Susie was speaking considerably less than everybody else. I truly love everybody I'm talking with, but I really don't take responsibility for people's happiness. I don't keep track of whether an individual person is having fun in a room, for example. Everybody's too different. Everybody looks different when they're having fun or when they're not. And to have to keep track of everybody in a room would be too distracting from what I'm enjoying. So I assume that they'll take care of themselves. If it turns out they didn't, then we'll talk about it later. So if you understand what I just said, you'll take a leap of a light year in your relationships. Love people, but don't manage them. Don't caretake people. Don't take responsibility for their happiness. Just love them. So later, Susie wrote to me, the one who spoke less. She said, "This morning I got to wondering what I could have done differently at dinner with you, Donna, and Elaine. I felt very full, very calm, and open when we left the house for dinner, and I spoke up and I asked to go where I wanted to go to eat, and everybody accommodated me. So the evening started out perfectly. And you got everything you wanted. You got the place, you invited Elaine by your choice, everything as you requested, which is not always possible, but in this case, you did get what you wanted." Then Elaine continues, or excuse me, Susie continues. "When I noticed that Elaine was touching you, I noticed the thought, oh, so when you're with other people, I'm not special anymore. So I'm not loved. I'm not important here. At dinner, I felt like I couldn't get my words into the conversation fast enough because of the pace of everyone talking. I didn't know the names of musicians, groups, or any of the stuff that you guys did. You guys were going from Mozart to Freddie Mercury to Whitney Houston faster than I could say their names. I noticed how cool it was, though, not to have to try so hard to get attention in the group. I like that part. I could have added some valued comments, but I didn't, and actually felt some freedom as a result. And then I noticed that it was really just a three-way conversation, and I began to judge that I was not valued in the group. So in that conversation, the words were being spoken by three people. You're right, because of the subjects of the conversation and the pace of the conversation. So what? Donna often says nothing in a group that includes me. Sometimes I don't say anything in a group that includes her. We talk about different things. We talk at a different pace that sometimes doesn't fit one or the other of us. But she doesn't care. I don't care. Pay attention, because this applies to you. Why does she not care in this case? Because sometimes it's me. Because she remembers that I love her with absolutely no connection to her conversational ability on that particular subject. That is what you could have done differently. At dinner, we happened to be talking about a subject that Donna knows and that Elaine knows. So they both participated. But it would not have mattered to either of them if it had been a different subject. It just happened to be that one that they were both conversing with. You continued. Inwardly, I self-attacked. That's a mistake. Now, you know that now, but for the benefit of everybody listening, you attacked because you believed a lie that your supposed failure to participate was an indication of your value. You made not participating equal failing to participate. Huge mistake. They're not the same thing. That's the thinking from your old life, from the old planet, if you like. And it's wrong. Stay on the new planet where you enjoy people instead of needing their approval or competing with them or comparing yourself to them. All field of death stuff. When you were a child, you did have to compete for approval. The approval of your mother, your father, and others. You competed with your brother, your classmates, the whole world. And I get it. It was awful. You continue. I assessed that Elaine was valued more, and I wasn't. I said to Donna on returning, thanks for including me. And that was a real statement about how I felt at the bottom of the rung. I didn't count. I couldn't trade and couldn't even earn love. I'm used to being around people who would have been more attentive to my not speaking, which, while nice, might have become an expectation for me in groups. Yeah, you might have been in groups where people paid more attention to whether you're participating, but nobody has that obligation. And in fact, very often people pay attention to who's participating because they're caretaking and because they're people pleasers. So we can't count on those people, and it may not even be a good thing to have those people around us to take care of us. You can't expect people to reach out and include you in a discussion. The reasonable assumption of a loving group would be that if you wanted to participate, you would. You might be, for example, unable to participate in one subject, but decide to join the next. You might have a stomach ache. You might just not feel well. It's not other people's job to figure that out. It's up to you to either participate, to leave, to not be bothered, whatever. People can't read your mind, or mine, or anybody's. You say, now, maybe this was a setup because I'd gotten so much attention earlier in the day, and the shift was just too great for me. But what could I have done to take more responsibility in the situation without being a victim? Well, we just talked about what you could have done. You said it was a gradual slide. It was okay, then not so okay. And maybe I could have said in the car, I noticed that I'm making the fact that I didn't pull my weight in the conversation mean that I'm not lovable. I could have gone to the bathroom at the restaurant and made a real love call, but that might have seemed kind of weird that I would have to do that around people who are in real love. I might have asked you to help me in the transition somehow, asked you to help me feel included, but I totally didn't anticipate this. I could have asked you to sit next to me and hold my hand. I just didn't think I would need that. You could have done any of those things. You could even have just stopped the conversation completely and said, I'm feeling left out. But when you got afraid, you got paralyzed. And so you just let things continue. And you allowed yourself to feel worse and worse to the point where it was pretty painful. So to everybody who's listening, look what we do to ourselves needlessly. We have to find people. One person initially is enough, and then simply trust them to love us all the way. We need to ask for what we need. We need to ask sooner and clearer with no fear. It changes everything. If we don't have those things, every conversation, every interaction, every relationship becomes a minefield. And in the process of walking across it, we're going to lose a limb. Something is going to blow up. So it's all about getting enough love ahead of time. Here's somebody who says, it's apparent that there's volumes, I don't know, about parenting an adult child. Well, true for pretty much all of us who have adult children. My youngest, in her mid-20s, feels abandoned by me and is still very wounded from that. She's always looking for a way that any action I take becomes me choosing something or somebody over her. And I get that. When I was newly divorced, I felt wounded and I just checked out. And she felt alone and abandoned. I really did abandon her. And then her first year of college, she needed me, but I moved out of town that year. So be careful. Don't lump every kind of abandonment together. The truth means taking responsibility for what we're responsible for and not taking it where it's not warranted. You checked out during your divorce. I believe you. I know you. I believe you did. That's your responsibility. But you left town her first year of college? That would be called too bad. No kid is entitled to have their lunchbox packed and to be tucked into their dorm room bed by their mommy for their first year of college. So probably not abandoning her then. You don't. If you have an opportunity to move, you don't stay because, well, I've got a child who's a freshman in college. That's way too much. You continue. Yesterday we had a conflict, my daughter and I was calm with her, but she was irritated. I've gone to great lengths to tell her how wrong I was when I abandoned her at age 13 during our divorce. I was numb. I was useless. So you need to tell her again that you understand how she felt abandoned. But then you say this, something like it, not these exact words. But I can't make up for that. And I've been trying to pay the price for the mistakes that I made when I didn't know any better. And it doesn't work. All I can do now is simply love you in the moment. And I'm committed to doing that and to learning to do it better. But now we get to your responsibility. You're not a child anymore. So now you have a responsibility in all this. You're in your mid-20s. I've been trying to love you, admittedly imperfectly, but you haven't been feeling it. Why? Partly my flaws, because I still have them, but partly because you're still angry about all those times in the distant past when I did neglect you. Now, I'm not telling you to change anything, but until you get over the past and let it go, you won't feel any of the love I'm giving you now. You manipulate me for attention, and then give her a specific example. I can't because I'm not with you two. You manipulate me for attention, and the moment you do that, you can't feel my love. All you can feel is a reward for manipulation. So I'm going to keep loving you. But one, I will not attempt to make up for the past anymore. And two, it's up to you to let the past go. You don't have to. But if you don't, you won't feel my love and you'll be far less happy. You continue. My goal is for her to feel loved so that she can heal. I want to love her and be more consistent. I know that in order to do that, I have to trust you and other wise people because I really don't know how in most interactions to stop the bleeding from that wound in a way that doesn't enable her victimhood. Right. You still do things that re-inflict the old wounds. Remember, I know you, so there are times when you get difficult with people and you would do it with her. And you need help from wise people to realize how you do that, just so that you can become more loving with her. You continue. Reading your first comment, I can see how clearly she's afraid, which makes her feel unloved and uncared for. I even know she's afraid, but all I could think of was myself. I've felt trapped and, hang on. This is a new subject. And I missed the line. See, there's like a little line between subjects and I missed that. This is somebody who wrote and said, it's a follow-up to the first email. That's why I didn't see the line. She said, I can see how my daughter is afraid, which makes her feel unloved and uncared for. And I know she's afraid, but all I could think of was myself. I've felt trapped and miserable in this job for so long. It's been a huge relief for me to decide that I want to change. And so both of you need to understand the role that you play, that you still make mistakes, that you made mistakes then, you're going to keep making mistakes, and her role is to get over the past. Until she does, it really doesn't matter how much you do change, because she'll keep being miserable and keep acting like a victim and keep blaming you. Here's a new member who writes, "Thank you for writing the book. I'm truly excited about learning how to practice unconditional love. I just discovered the book a few days ago. I'm confident that it will help with the anger I feel toward myself. I'm becoming aware that when I'm offered love, I tend to back away. I didn't receive unconditional love from my mother, and I catch myself thinking that I don't deserve it from other people if I couldn't get it from her. I'll keep reading the book. Do you talk about the possibility of not feeling good when we're offered love and praise?" Yes, that's in lots of books. When you were a child, and then for the rest of your life, when you were offered praise and what people called love, it always had a price. It had a hook. You had to keep performing to earn the praise. People expected something in return for their love and praise, and you could feel it. I mean, just the simplest things. I watch people praise a little girl because she's so pretty and she hides her face in her mother's skirt. Why does she do that? Because she's learned at a very early age that when somebody says, "Oh, you're so pretty," the other person expects her to smile and say thank you. And if she doesn't say thank you, then mom says, "Now, what do you say to Mr. Jones?" It's a drag. All of this praise and love has hooks, so you learn to hate it. Many of us hate praise for that reason. We fear the word love in developing relationships. Oh, people are scared to death in a developing relationship to either speak or hear the L word. And that's why, because of the embedded hooks, just like we were fish and a worm dropped in the water. So the solution, simple, get enough of the real thing. And then the imitation stuff becomes relatively insignificant. If you're sufficiently filled with real love and somebody praises you, you just really don't care. You might say thank you, but you're not uncomfortable with it because you don't feel hooked. That's your choice. Here's a woman who says, "I took my 14-year-old daughter, Christy, to see a play the other day. Wicked is the name of the play. I still haven't seen it. This is her favorite play, and I had never seen it before. When the play started, I saw my daughter putting her hands in front of her mouth. You've seen kids do this. And quietly singing along to the songs, as though, the people around her couldn't hear her singing. And at first I thought it was really cute. And then I saw the man sitting next to her. He leaned forward. He was probably able to hear her singing as well. And I caught myself wanting to tell her to stop singing because watching the man move made me uncomfortable. Good for you to identify that it was your problem. And natural enough. We don't want our kids to inconvenience the people around us. But then you say, I realized how selfish this behavior was. So I started talking to myself in my mind. So here we've got you talking to yourself and your daughter singing to herself. Allowing myself to see my selfishness and saying to myself that everything was going to be okay and I didn't need to control it. How lovely of you. If the man was bothered, he could very easily have said something. Lady, could you please shut up your kid? In the meantime, you just let it go. Then you say, during intermission, we saw that the man was having a great time. He was taking care of himself. At the end of the play, my daughter turned to me and said, Mom, now I know what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to sing and go to Broadway. If I would have interfered during the play, I would have ruined that perfect moment. Bless your heart. Who cares whether the kid's going to go to Broadway? She had a flicker of what it was like to have a wild and crazy dream. You say, I'm so grateful that I'm able to catch myself now before I actually react. This is right out of the book. Event, judgment, feeling, reaction. In the past, your daughter would have made noise. You would have made the judgment that it would make you look bad in front of other people. You would have felt embarrassed and you would have shut her up. This time, same event occurred. You made the judgment that, the guy next to her can take care of himself. He can say something if he wants to. I'm not going to do anything. Or at least I'm not going to judge it's going to have a bad effect. Your feeling? Love for your daughter. Your reaction? Do nothing. And as a result, you got such a cool result. A miracle, really. Miracle in parenting. This is from a member who is dating. And he writes, I'm dating a lady named Rosemary, and she likes to take care of her adult family members, like her niece, her nephew, and others. Her niece is staying at her house for a few weeks. So Rosemary and I had dinner at her house. She's a great cook. She's a gracious host. But when her niece came home from work, she stopped paying attention to me entirely, took care of her niece, prepared her food, did everything but bathe her feet and legs at the table, talked about her day. The date was done. So it's actually not a problem to entertain her niece. But if you two are going to be a couple, if you even entertain the thought of being a couple, and why would you be dating more than once, and you have been dating several times, if you're not practicing toward becoming a couple? Well, then she would have to talk to you. That's what adults do who are moving toward partnership. Talk to you about what you would also like. She doesn't have to grant every request, but she would at the very least talk to you. She has to learn to work her activities with her niece around you. That's what partners do. You can still do everything you want to do. When the grandkids come over, I can do everything I want to with every grandkid and every child, but Donna and I work out what we are going to do first. We work as partners. Rosemary would remember you. She can do both, just has to remember you first. You say, she told me last night that her 24-year-old nephew would be living with her for the foreseeable future, starting next month. He has kind of an Asperger's something, but has a job. He's currently living with his father. And she told me essentially, take it or leave it. Too bad. Don't care what you think. So that's at least something to think about, since you're considering her as a partner. If she puts you before the nephew, if she does, talking to you about her plans and involving you wherever you'd like, well, then having the nephew over is nothing. So what? Be like her having a pet. She'd still put you first. But if she devotes herself to him and you get what's left over, which is what it sounds like she's done with your niece, you're not going to have a partnership with a woman like this. It sounds like her role in life, the thing that makes her feel like she's worthwhile, is taking care of people. Okay, she gets to make that choice. But it makes it pretty tough to be a partner with somebody like that. You say, since she made the decision regarding the nephew before we were exploring being partners, then I assume she does not have to negotiate or be flexible. Well, no, she would not have to be flexible about having him there since she already agreed to it. But she's going to have to pretty soon get to exploring being partners with you. You two aren't 16-year-olds. She'd have to be willing to start putting you first, or you got no relationship. Now, does she have to put you first? No. But what she's telling you is, I don't really want a partner. And you need to be listening to it because she's telling you with her behavior, which is the only thing that counts. It doesn't matter what she says. Oh, I love you so much. And everybody comes before you. Well, I love you so much doesn't mean very much, does it? You say, I told her that this isn't working for me. I don't want to live with her nephew. And she insisted that I'm wrong to be attracted to a woman who, quote, takes care of people, as though somehow that were, the ultimate conversation stopper. So You don't want to be married to Mother Teresa. See how sneaky this is? She says, you can't be attracted to somebody who's like me and then ask me not to be like that. Sneaky on her part, but it's not telling her not to take care of people. It's about her being able to alter her focus or priorities to take care of people after focusing on her partner. If I have all the grandkids and kids over and Donna says, I want a minute, then everybody can just go into suspended animation because I'm going to spend time with Donna. And then I can still get to the kids and grandkids. She's just first. And everybody in the family knows that. That's a partnership. Anything else ain't. You say, is this just a preference I have, or am I being unloving and not wanting to partner with somebody who helps people? It seems like you and Donna have a lot of people in your house. Yeah, we do. But nobody comes here without both of us agreeing to it. And we agree how we're going to spend our time with the people who come, family or not. Second email, same guy. So at dinner last night with Rosemary's now 2 nieces and nephew, she and one niece get into an extended conversation about where to grocery shop in a nearby town. And then at dinner, what are some good restaurants in yet another town? Her niece had just bought a house there, and Rosemary used to live in that area. And the other 2 guests, while they were talking, got on their iPhones. So here's Rosemary and her niece talking. The other 2 are on their iPhones, and I was just left completely out. So I made the choice to leave and get on the Thursday conference call. No problem with that, as long as you weren't irritated. So you say, she texted me later and asked if I was okay. And I said, I was on the conference call. And she said, well, I was just checking. What choices do I have when I feel trapped rather than just leave? There are a lot of things you could do. You could have a conversation with her and let her know that you're interested in a real relationship with her. If you are, well, you seem to be since you dated for a while. And that when you 2 schedule a time for you to come over, it would be helpful if she let you know that she would be talking almost exclusively to her niece or whoever. Then you could decide whether you want to be there and be ignored. And if that's going to be the case, you could schedule a different time to come over. Now, if she does the old trick of, oh, so do you not like my niece? That's a favorite for people who take care of people. Or one of those little similar manipulative and dumb responses. You could say, no, sure, I like her. But right now I'm exploring a relationship not with your niece. I'm exploring a relationship with you. Your niece could come lots of other times. So I just like to know when I can be with you. We don't even know each other very well yet. So that would be my first priority, not getting to know your nieces and nephews. You continue. Should I tell her that her focus was on her niece and that I didn't feel connected to her or that particular conversation? Or can I say, let's talk about something else? Finally, when is dating getting information turned into seeing if you can love the person, wanting nothing from them? Because those are 2 different functions. In the beginning of dating, we gather information, and then we learn to see if we can love them unconditionally. I was clearly bored. Acting interested was a lie. And I suggest that during dating, you're pretty much always doing both. You're always gathering information and about the other person, seeing if you can unconditionally love them. You're both on trial, if you like, or being examined. You're examining yourself. So should I bring a book to read when Rosemary goes off into her head, full of this or that? Apparently she goes off on long tirades about various subjects, and he gets bored. If she's interested in different subjects than you are, why not listen for a while, no matter how boring it is to you, and then suggest eventually a subject of your own? But that's nothing compared to her tendency to put everybody else first. Third email follow-up. He said, I had the conversation that you talked about. I requested that her focus be on me before her niece, and she said, well, then dinner with my family would not be a good venue for us. So she is the matriarch of her family, talks about her extended family a lot, and is saying that she's not willing to adjust. She said that her last husband hated her family, by the way. Well, now you can understand why, because he came last. So is she saying that she's unwilling to make me a primary focus? She has them for dinner weekly, and her nephew is moving in, so she's surrounded by these people to take care of. It doesn't have to be problematic, but it would eventually come to this, and you'd have to talk about it if you two are going to be in a long-term relationship. She can still be the matriarch of the extended family. Apparently everybody's fine with that because she makes him dinner and has him over and has him live with her. Okay, fine. But every decision she made, if you two are going to be a couple, like inviting the niece over for dinner, would be a joint decision between both of you. In a marriage, nobody makes unilateral decisions. It's just not done. Neither Donna nor I ever invite our own blood children over without talking to the other one. That's what partners do. They share decisions. So she could still spend time with her niece and nephew, but only after you two discussed it and you both agreed that you'd have enough time together. Donna and I do this all the time. And you have every indication from this woman, she's not going to do that. I mean, she has no children. She puts all of her emphasis on her extended family, nieces, nephews, whoever. And early on, she's pretty much told you, tough beans. She's already lost a husband because he was last and didn't like it. So do you really want to be the next husband she loses? Doesn't sound like it's worth it. Listen to her behavior, not her words. Here's somebody who says, my wife, Melissa, and I are in the process of going through the legal process to get a divorce. Over a month ago, I made a proposal to Melissa about how to pay our adult kids' tuition and college expenses. We've got, I can't remember, 2 or 3 kids, which we had previously agreed when we were married to pay together. She referred the whole thing to her attorney. She never answers my emails, never cooperates with anything, and we ended up exchanging lengthy letters through attorneys costing several $1,000s. Still don't have a resolution about paying the tuition that we'd previously agreed we'd pay together. Hence the lack of desires on most attorneys' part to actually reach a solution. They make money the longer it drags out. How many divorce attorneys have I known? They're just only too happy to have 2 people in a divorce wrangle it out for the next 20 years because they get paid by the hour. You say, my attorney made the last proposal over 2 weeks ago without any response from her or her attorney. Now, school for 2 of my boys, college, starts tomorrow. And today I received the following text from my son. I need you to pay my tuition for school. I can't fix my classes until you do. And then the person who's writing to me says, now keep in mind, I haven't heard from my son in a couple of months, even with regularly reaching out to him on my part, mostly because his mother keeps telling him that everything about the divorce is my fault. So this text, this demand came out of the blue. Now, I've known you for a while, so I know a little bit more than the people who are listening to this. This is a pretty entitled kid. I read some of his emails from the past, and I don't recall ever speaking to a rock in the tone of voice that he speaks to you, even after I've stubbed my toe on it. He's entitled, and it's not a real big wonder where this came from. Those of you who are listening, this man's soon-to-be ex was pretty much a professional victim, and the stories don't really matter all that much, but she's taught it very well to her 2 sons, how to be a victim, how to be entitled, how to complain, how to cry. So the man says, I responded to my son with this: I appreciate that this is an inconvenience for you. However, your mother and I are working through the details and timing, and it may have an impact on you. I love you, Dad. That's pretty good. You'll probably have to be a little more direct, though, that you're waiting on her. You say, your mother and I are working through the details. No, you've worked through the details, and she's not responding. Why give her more? Why tell him that you're waiting on her? Because then he'll write her and possibly break up the logjam. Probably not, but it's worth a shot. Then you say, my son replied immediately, because normally he doesn't respond to my texts quickly at all, but when it comes to money, he responds very quickly. He responded with, no, you need to do it tomorrow and work it out with her right now. I can't modify my school schedule or register for any classes unless you pay it. And then it turns out that the son also called him some names, which I've never called a rock, even when I've stubbed my toe on it. So he says, the man who's writing, first of all, I'm not sure if what he's saying is accurate, like about the time to pay. He clearly doesn't want to use his money for tuition because he has some. And second, the last proposal was that we use common funds and pay the kids' college expenses. I feel like I'm stuck. I can't use common funds without an agreement. And if I just pay, I may be setting a precedent that may damage me in the future. My attorney says that the judge may interpret my paying as evidence that I'm willing to pay 100% of their college until they're out of college. Good thinking. I get asked legal advice from people who are getting divorced every week. Always ask your attorney what the best thing to do is, financially speaking, because it changes from state to state. All 50 states have different laws. You say, I don't want to drag my kids into the middle of our inability to come to an agreement about financial support, but I'm not sure how to avoid it. But see, they already are in the middle of your lack of agreement. So there's no way you can avoid this. And they're not 6 years old, even if they act like they're 6 years old. So why hide the truth from them? Tell them the truth. We're always protecting kids from information they need when there's a divorce. Tell them your latest proposal, that you made a suggestion where their tuition could be paid easily. And tell them they can talk to your ex-wife and ask why she hasn't agreed to this in writing. You continue. I'm not asking for legal advice. Good for you. But rather how to not be unloving to my son and avoid the merry-go-round with Melissa that just sends me into a spin. Could I say something like this to my son? I don't know if you've spoken to your mother about this, but we're not in a position to help you at this time until we work some things out. You'll need to pay whatever you have, whatever funds you have to pay on your own, or work something out with the University Financial Aid Office. They used to have a way to defer paying tuition for a period of time for circumstances just like this. Or do I just tell him the truth? Tell him the truth. He's not 6. You say, I propose saying this. I've agreed to pay 50% of your college expenses, but until mom agrees, I can't give it to you. I can't pay any. I've been waiting weeks for your mother to agree on this. Yes, you say it just like that. Finally, you conclude, I could turn it over to my attorney and allow him to write more letters back and forth, but my attorney won't be able to respond to me for a couple of days since he's out of the office, so the deadline will pass, and it's going to be a waste of time. And I also thought, do I send Melissa copies of the correspondence and ask her if she wants to do something about this predicament that my son is in? Nah, tell your son to write her. He'll almost certainly copy her on your email anyway. Everybody wants divorces to be easy and clean. They almost never are either. So welcome to telling the truth. You're just describing the situation. You're not saying your stupid mother hasn't responded. You're not saying it's your mother's fault. You're not saying she always does this. Those things would not be good. But no, I just can't pay your tuition until we have an agreement with your mother. Poof. Easy. the truth. Here's somebody who says, my son drinks and gets out of control. And this time, my son-in-law stepped in and told him to stop because he was being inappropriate with my son-in-law's 5-year-old. Good thing he stepped in. And if he doesn't step in next time, you could step in or ask someone else to and tell him he has to leave the room. Or everybody else will because he's gotten out of control. Or if he refuses to leave the room and keeps up the behavior, you call the police. I'm just stunned at how few parents are willing to do this. I ran into a father the other day who kept telling his daughter that she just couldn't take his car whenever she wanted to and she could never drive it drunk. And I said, well, what do you do when she does it? Well, then I have a good stern talk with her. I said, and has that ever worked? Well, no, but I'm going to talk to her again. No, you're not. If she takes your car again, drunk or not, you report her to the police for stealing your car. And then if she drives drunk, you call the police and tell her exactly where you last knew that she was. He did it. And they picked her up driving drunk, and now she's in jail. Bless his heart. She's never been held accountable for her behavior. People just give her a stern talking to, and then she does whatever she feels like it. With a drunk, you have to tell them what you will do if they don't behave. You can't reason with a drunk. If you try to, you become just as dumb as the drunk. Here's somebody who says, I was telling my husband, Mark, something I was really excited about. His phone made a text noise while we were talking, you know, that little ding or whatever they call those. I don't know if they call them ringtones when it's with the tones. And he picked it up and he looked at it while we were talking. I stopped my conversation, paused a moment, and I said, Mark, when I'm sharing something and you look at your phone like that, I get the message that my sharing with you isn't all that important, that actually I'm not that important. That's a perfect thing to say. Partners must not interrupt their conversations with electronic intrusions. It really does communicate a lack of caring. Now, if you're out with your wife who's a cardiac surgeon on call, then she might have to pick up her cellular device and look. But short of that, and see, he interrupted it to look at a tweet. I can't think of a tweet that I really got to get to right now, especially since I haven't looked at a tweet ever. No, not necessary. He started with a few words of, well, I was watching this tweet. Yeah, a tweet doesn't trump a partnership. So I interrupted and said, I understand what you're saying, but I still get that message. You can keep looking at your phone. I'm not asking you to change. Ooh, you're doing good, kid. I just can't feel like a priority when you interrupt talking me to look at something as small as a tweet. And then he got frustrated, but I left it in his court. His frustration is not a really good sign that he's listening or that he can listen. If he does it again, you're going to have to go through this again. Don't just let it go because it will continue and usually worsen. And you're just going to discover soon when he gets tweets, he just pushes you into the closet and shuts the door. If you have to point it out again and again, you do that. It's too important because in addition, I'm guessing, it's not really a guess, but I'll call it guessing, that he shows you in lots of other ways that you're not as important as a partner needs to be. If you let those go without intending to, what you're telling him is, it's okay. So that then when you get irritated and say, it really bothers me when you do blank, I can promise you what he's going to say. Well, it didn't bother you the 900 times before this. You know what, honey? He'll have ground to stand on. You didn't stop him 900 times in a row that he was inconsiderate, and then all of a sudden you're bothered. So that's not reasonable on your part. We have to say something when our partners deviate from what true partnership is. This is from a woman whose been in real love for a while, and her father died. She said, I asked her how she was doing. She said, I'm doing really well. I feel completely calm and accepting of his death. It's been wonderful to be able to offer love from a totally fearless place, and I know that it's made a huge difference to my mother. Well, how lovely for both of you. I've simply held her hand when she has occasionally cried. I haven't tried to fix her or, say anything to get her feelings to be calmer. And she's chosen to have me around rather than other members of the family. She says she doesn't have to pretend around me. And she finds other people in the family's grief hard to be around because she feels like she has to make them feel better. Funny how that works, isn't it? After a death, at a funeral, at a viewing, other places, people come and they cry to the spouse of the person who's died, the person who's grieving the most, and they expect the spouse to make them feel better. Craziness. Unspoken expectations, but insane. You say, I've had some lovely talks with her and encouraged her to make all her own decisions, even though other members of the family are trying to make them for her. How nice that you're there. Today I took her for a drive out to a country hotel where she used to go with my dad. And on the way home, she said she'd really enjoyed herself. I mean, this is days after my father's died. I listened to her reminisce about Dad without sadness, and I said how lovely it was that she felt able to truly enjoy herself without guilt just a few days after her husband dying. She said she felt completely free to enjoy it and not feel guilty. She said that he would have wanted her to be happy, and she doesn't feel as if she needs to portray her grief in a certain way around me. Heaven. And because you're so accepting, because you're not placing demands on her. It's just beautiful to read. You say she's been amazing. I always thought that she would go to pieces if my dad died, but not offering her sympathy or indulging the grief has revealed a stronger mom than I ever thought possible. It's amazing how people do better when they're just loved and not coddled, not taken care of. I'm organizing the funeral and executing the will. The rest of my family is just too distraught to do anything. They just want to leave it all to me, and I'm glad to do it. Frankly, I prefer it that way because the rest of the family is pretty incapable. I'm allowing my mom to make all of the decisions because my dad never did let her make any decisions. I think she's appreciating it. This has been a beautifully connecting time for me and my mom, and I have given from a place of love, not fear, duty, guilt, or pain. How amazing that I can feel this good just 2 days after my dad dying. Wow. Yeah, wow. Freakishly cool. Everything goes better when we feel loved and when we're loving. Like, everything. Here's somebody who says, I have an old friend, Brenda, who really tends to ask intrusive questions about me, my marriage, my 2 kids. Since I've been practicing real love, things have really been different with me, with my marriage and with my kids, like really different. So now this friend is noticing this and she's pouring on the questions. She wants to know everything I've learned and what I'm doing, but I don't really feel like sharing it. Your life really has changed since real love, a lot. In the beginning, it's kind of a sacred experience. It's how it feels. And you're not certain how to describe it, so you don't have to. You say, I called a wise person to tell her how it went. And I guess I must have been afraid, even though I didn't think I was. I felt myself wanting Brenda to like me. I was thinking about future conversations where I'd feel obligated to share about everything I'm up to and answering every question. So I've decided that when she asks about my husband and kids or about, what real love has done, I think I'm going to say, in the past, I've shared a lot about my marriage and my personal beliefs and my family life with you, but I've learned a lot over the last few months, and it's new to me. I want to go slowly in sharing it. So I'd like it if we didn't talk about my marriage and family life until I bring it up again. That's pretty good, kid. Really good. As you get closer to saying it, you may discover it's a little blunt for you. I'm just knowing you. You could simplify it. You can say just what you said. It's perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's easier to write a thing than to say a thing. You could just say, my life's really good. Real love really works. And each time she asks another question, you say exactly the same thing. My life's really good. Oh, how about your son? Really good. This real love thing really works. You say that 3 times in a row, she'll catch on. You'll just discover it's easier to remember 2 sentences than everything you just said. What you said, great. But when you get under stress, we don't remember things as well. Here's somebody who says, you decide whether this is appropriate to talk about on a Tuesday night video chat. And I admit, I was kind of wondering whether I would find it appropriate too. She said, I have genital herpes, which brings the conversation in most rooms to a stop. Try it sometime. When there's a bunch of people gathered around, just say that. See if anybody keeps talking. I feel as though I have a scarlet letter on me and my worth is attached to it. I feel like I'm a slut or a whore and deserve the herpes. Also, at some level, I believe that it's God's punishment for my bad choices. Honey, I have a pretty strong belief in God, and I know him pretty well. You are not punished. If everybody was punished for every bad thing they did, we'd all be dead. We'd all have way worse diseases. We'd all have Ebola. You just had sex. You got herpes. Happens every day all over the world. Having sex may not have been wise, but you were not punished. You continue. When I met my husband, Dennis, we didn't have sex until I told him about the herpes. And we also went to my doctor and talked about what it means for him and for me. And the doctor chose to test Dennis for herpes because he might already have it, not have the symptoms, but he doesn't. So now I take my medications to prevent the outbreaks, and I haven't had one in a long time. But when I do, I still feel this shame. And my husband has chosen not to wear protection when we make love. And I go into the future and I get afraid of transmitting it to him. He made the choice, and I'm not responsible for the consequences of his choice. But if he gets infected, I just don't know how I wouldn't feel guilty or responsible. You already answered your own question. You already said it's his choice to have unprotected sex. It's not your problem. You simply got a disease long ago, kid. Let it go. I personally have caused a lot of pain for myself and others over the years, but there's nothing I can do about it. I made my choices, did my best, and some choices were awful. I could think about those forever, but I don't. I don't have the time or energy, so I focus on the ones that I make today and suggest you do the same. You say, I've realized I've been choosing the choices, that I've been choosing the choice I don't really have, which is that I don't want to have the herpes. No, you really don't get to make that choice. I can take full responsibility for the fact that I got it because I had unprotected, foolish sex, and this was the natural consequence that I have to live with. And I'm worthy even though I have the disease, and you and other people love me knowing this about me, and you don't think less of me. And my husband loves me and chose to marry me knowing this. And so I need to just stop fussing about this. I should have just read further in your email before I answered anything. You already understand all this. We have to let go of our mistakes. They'll just drag us down and, if anything, lead us to make more of them. So instead of fussing and worrying and doing guilt and stress and all that stuff, do what we talk about every week. We find real love in our lives. We trust it. We remember it, and we share it as much as we're able with the people around us. And in the process, it's a guaranteed lock that we'll be happy. Talk to you in a week.